Welcome to the Fat Fueled Family Podcast, where every week Danny and Maura Vega discuss topics that help families live a healthy and active lifestyle with their little ones, including nutrition and training, peaceful parenting, education, and mindset. To stay up to date, make sure to hit subscribe on this podcast and check out the blog at www.fatfueled.family. You can also find them on Facebook and Instagram at DannyVega.ms, at FatFueledMom, and at FatFueledKids, and Fat Fueled Family on YouTube. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Fat Fueled Family Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Vega, and I'm joined by my beautiful wife who's about to turn, I'm not going to say what age, but it's about to be her birthday. So
yay!
Happy early birthday, my love.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited.
Super pumped. We're going to leave this weekend to Destin, Florida. We're going to spend the weekend in Destin for her birthday after we record this podcast. Yeah, we've never been, so we're super excited. And as you guys know, this is the 4th episode of our medical cannabis series. And today we're joined by Dr. Herve Damas. He's a physician, former professional football player, wellness director, professor of health and exercise science, as well as strength and conditioning specialist. He's dedicated to promoting a lifestyle of prodigious achievement, healthy living, and altruism. Dr. Damas is the doctor of professional athletes. He holds a large client base of former professional athletes in South Florida, Orlando, and the Tampa Bay area. Additionally, Athletes for Care advocates for national drug policy changes and protocol changes for post-career transitions of former athletes. Dr. Damas has been a featured keynote speaker at various events where he shared his extensive knowledge of cannabis and its healing potential to help destigmatize the effects and share the benefits of this life-changing medicinal resource. Dr. Damas is widely known for his work with the Cannabis Clinicians of Colorado on a study that will evaluate the effects of CBD as a pain management tool for former elite-level athletes in sports, including football, hockey, and basketball. And he quickly realized he could help others heal with the knowledge and experience he gained by treating patients with medical marijuana. And we're honored to have him today. Welcome, wow. Dr. Herve Damas. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. Wow, that's a lot.
Pretty good, huh?
That's a lot.
Hey. Listen. This guy has an MBA. He played NFL football. He's a radiologist. I mean, he's like the most interesting man in the world for sure.
Welcome, the most interesting man.
Yeah. But instead of beer, I'm smoking weed. Yeah,
that's it. You're in a safe place here. We're here to talk about that today. So we're pumped.
Nice.
We're excited.
That's awesome.
All right, Dr. Damas. Well, awesome. Well, we're so excited to talk to you and dig into this topic with you. And we always lead off with the question, what is the most critical problem that you're currently trying to solve?
The most critical problem would definitely be the stigma associated with the plant. And I would say not more so the stigma, but the lack of knowledge.
Right.
I think that is the number one thing, because there's been such a long history of prohibition and propaganda in the United States that people have kind of accepted the status quo and the information as is. And it takes a lot of pushing and a lot of education, a lot of outreach to kind of open up some doors that have already been closed. And so that's the thing I dedicate my life to, and that's what I'm doing now most of all. It's kind of like increasing the knowledge base, getting that education out there, and hopefully people will take advantage of, this wonderful alternative, quote unquote alternative, this wonderful opportunity to get yourself healthier without all these terrible side effects.
It's interesting, doctor, because, as a doctor, you see this all the time. Patients come in, they have a great experience, they go home and they stay quiet. But one patient has one thing that goes wrong and they'll tell everybody about it. And, it's kind of the same thing with this marijuana thing, because you got reefer madness in the 20s or 30s, whenever that came out, it's like 30s. The damage has been done, And so it's really hard to roll that back and get people to be like, wait, this is not, a life-ending drug. This is not like a dangerous, what is it? Schedule
1. Schedule 1.
Schedule 1 drug.
Schedule 1.
Nuts.
Yeah. So it's a combination of not only the reefer madness kind of stuff that was the propaganda machine that was pushed out in the 30s, but also the long-term drug enforcement policies, right? So people were getting arrested lose their lives were being destroyed, families were being torn apart. And if you're looking at that, I would say specifically in a minority community, if you're looking at that and saying to yourself, dude, I don't want to get involved in that. Like, do you know what happens to people that get involved with marijuana? They get arrested. They wind up going to jail. And then there's also, the negative stigma associated with quote unquote potheads or stoners.
Right.
So there's all of that. All of that stuff needs to be kind of cleared out of the way because that's a perception. Most people don't realize even Shaggy from Scooby-Doo was supposed to be like a take on a weed head, like on a stoner.
Yeah. He always had the munchies.
Totally.
He always had the munchies, super lazy. So
that makes perfect sense.
Lots of stereotypes and things, and it's doing people a disservice because there's so many benefits to the plant, and we treat so many conditions with it that we have an opportunity to really impact people's lives with this and turn their health towards a direction more holistic, more natural, less side effects, less of addictive potential, improve quality of life, improve mental health. All this stuff we can do with this one plant. And, because of the way things have been run, a lot of people won't have access, don't have access, or won't be open to it. And got to change that.
Yeah. And, in addition to what you said, like, we have to continue to really scream loud on our loud phones because like the on a policy level, there is constantly like one step forward, one step back, one step forward, one step back.
Right.
Right. Because there's always like something just happened. I forgot what it was with the flower. Like they made it. Yeah. They made it like really hard to get, or I don't know the details.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So when we passed Amendment 2 in 2016 in the state of Florida, which is the current version of our medical marijuana law, we passed that with a 71% majority. So that's not even a majority. I think that's a plurality. I'm not good on my civics. Yeah, it's more than a majority. Right? Majority is 50. I think it's a plurality, right? I don't know, like 2/3. But and that was an election that was the Hillary and Trump election where the state of Florida was split 50-50 in terms of their political beliefs or where they stood. But 7 out of 10 people said yes to medical marijuana. So you're looking overwhelmingly, the people of Florida were like, yeah, man, this is what we want. And then when it got into the hands of the legislators to put it into effect, they delayed it. They were supposed to have the policy in effect by June of that year of 2017. It didn't come into place until October of 2017. They underfunded the department. So there weren't enough people there to actually handle the demand. In the beginning, I was helping my patients. Realistically, my staff and I, we were taking passport photos. We were following up with applications. I had some patients who waited 2.5, 3 months to get their card. This was preposterous. And then there was no provision for smoking flower. And then there's no edibles. There were all these restrictions, which even as a patient, for example, in most other states, you get qualified by your physician for a certain period of time, and then you go to your dispensary and you can medicate as you see fit. In the state of Florida, you get certified by your physician for a maximum of 210 days, which is 7 months. So patients have to come in and see me every 210 days, which is a strain, right? But within that 210 days, they get quote unquote prescriptions for every 70 days. And that prescription will run out. So that means every 70 days or so, the patient needs to come back and get a refill. So you're making people kind of jump through hoops. And then there's, a certain amount that they can purchase. So I have to say, well, you can purchase 10,000 milligrams, and that might be too much or too little. Just a lot of things that were put in place to make it a little bit more difficult. And even now that we've got flour, you can only get 2 ounces of flour or so, a little bit more than that, every 35 days. So again, another hoop that the patient has to jump through for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, that's so frustrating, especially because it is for no reason.
Yeah, because a lot of people they don't know these details, and they're like, okay, they might have been on the fence before. They might have been like, okay, now this is legal. Great, time to go see someone, and then then you realize it's not as clear as we thought.
Right.
I want to add a little quick story because I think this is funny because it reminded me of it, and you might get a kick out of it too. Last election, neither of us, my wife and I, are hardcore political atheists. Like, we just hate the political system. We're a bunch of weirdos. There's no way that we could vote for Trump. There's no way we could vote for Hillary. What are we going to do? So we were like, we're just not going to vote. But then Gary Johnson, 2 days before the election, really made our decision easy for us because he was debating marijuana legalization with some weird lady. And they were on this panel, and the lady, did you see this video?
Oh my gosh, it was so funny.
No.
Yeah, so she was like,
she was being so dramatic.
She was like, 20, after you smoke marijuana, your risk of heart attack goes up by 20% or something like that in the first hour after use, or some weird thing. And Gary Johnson like clutched his heart and like fell to the floor.
He started
and
pretending.
faked a heart attack.
Oh yeah. He was on the stage. Was that the one? Yes, that's right.
Oh my gosh,
and that's when we were like, well, we know
I'm
who
like,
we're
I guess you get
now.
my vote now.
Well, we sent our absentee ballots in. We voted for Gary Johnson.
That's nice. And it's nonsense like that. That is not true.
It's nonsense.
Right?
Yeah.
But someone can go on air and spew that nonsense, and certain people will be swayed and hold on to it. Right?
Yeah.
Cannabis, there's no evidence of cannabis related heart attacks or causing myocardial infarctions in people who are already in the risk pool. That means if you already have an arrhythmia, for example, right? So you've got an irregular heartbeat and you're being treated. We already know that. Yeah, cannabis can do that. So can high amounts of coffee. So can cocaine. So can so can certain medications. Methadone can do, there are a number of things that can do that, but you can't, there's no study that relates a perfectly healthy person consuming a small amount of cannabis and then suffering a myocardial infarction. As a matter of fact, there are no reported deaths that can be related to cannabis use. Cause of death, cannabis intoxication. Never has happened. Right?
Yeah.
So,
that's
great.
Right. That has never happened. So for someone to say something like that, you got to say, well, they're deliberately trying to mislead people, create an atmosphere of fear.
Of course.
And fear and distrust.
Seeds of doubt.
Yeah. And then of course, if I'm an older person and I'm on the fence already and I'm watching this and this person says, hey, you can get a heart attack, I would say to myself, no, I'm all set. Like, I don't want a heart attack.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
I'm good. Right. And that's wrong.
Yeah, I'll just keep taking my statins and my other medications.
Yeah. I'll keep taking, I'll keep on taking my Percocet. So I'll keep on taking.
Or opiates. Exactly. No one bats an eye. Mm-hmm.
No one bats an eye.
Oh, my God.
And I'm far more terrified of those.
Yeah.
Well, you should be. And that's very, 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 very wise because those things are like, I have patients now. Actually, there's a recent study that showed that people who consume cannabis in any of its forms, whether it's THC products or CBD products or combination of both, and they were using opioids, can get up to as high as a 40% decrease in consumption of the opioids. So if you're on, and most people start off on that opioid addiction because of pain. They wind up going to a physician, having a procedure, something happened, you get prescribed this stuff, and within a couple of days you're hooked. And after you get hooked, and after you get hooked, the more of it that you consume, the less effective it is because it starts to upregulate your receptors, meaning your receptors become less sensitive to it. You're going to need more. So now you're hooked to this thing that doesn't even take your pain away. So what happens? You need to take more, right? Like I'm taking this thing for pain. My body's screaming for it, like, please give it to me, right? So when I don't have it, I'm sick. I can't take it. I'm sick. I go through withdrawals, and it's still not taking my pain away. It's still not taking my pain
it's
away,
vicious.
right? Man. So I need more of it. And more of it is going to do what? Now you're deeper in the rabbit hole. And these people, when you get people on cannabis for pain management, they stop using the opioids. Not only that, but it also helps them with the cravings for the opioids because cannabinoids are slight, moderate antagonists or agonists, of the opioid receptors. So the cravings, the physical like I need this, I'm going to withdraw, those decrease. And this is the kind of information I like to get out. Like this is my thing in it. I played sports, but I like to educate people and say, no. This is what the data shows. This is how it works. This is like what you've heard is wrong. We've all heard a lot of things. Hell, I heard if you looked in the mirror 3 times and said, Bloody Mary, something would have. You can hear a lot of things. If I looked in the mirror and said like Candyman 3 times, this guy would show up. Who knows?
Oh, Candyman! I did that one.
You did that one
in summer camp. It's summer camp. Yeah.
You made it. You made it.
I made it. They were wrong.
Well, oh my gosh, you got me choking.
Yeah, I smoke. That's that weed you were smoking. That's not us. that's sticky. No, and even that, I got to tell, I educate patients on like, hey, listen, man, there's many ways to take it. Originally, a lot of people didn't even smoke. This was, boiled into a tea. This is part of our natural medicine chest. If you follow the distribution of the cannabis plant across the globe, it doesn't follow the regular migratory patterns of, say, birds or other animals who would have consumed the seeds of the flower. And then, as they went, their droppings would have then fertilized the soil, that kind of thing. Or you find like insects pollinate things. Cannabis has been distributed by man. It's followed our patterns. Wherever we've gone, we've brought it with us. So you could say we either really like to get high as primitive people, like, hey man, we're gonna go, right? Like we're gonna explore some new territories, right? It's gonna be a long journey. Make sure you bring the weed, or hey man, we're gonna explore some, right? Because we got to get high when we get there, or make sure you bring the medicine. Which is, hey, we're going on this journey. We're going to start expanding and moving forward. And wherever we go, make sure you bring all the herbs, all the medicines with you because we need that. And that's pretty much, what we've been doing with this plant since we've quote unquote discovered it. We've been using it as part of our medicine chest. And we were predominantly using a version of the plant that's closer to what we would call hemp nowadays. So not as much THC, but because now people are like, making exotic strains and they're doing things and they're doing hybrids. But, realistically, there's evidence of the Chinese emperor around 9,000 BC, might have been 10,000, ordering his servants to make him his tea, his cannabis tea, which we assume is predominantly hemp. And we know Queen Elizabeth. I think this was not the quote. Who's the one there right now? Is that Queen Elizabeth? That's the one that's current. I don't know.
I think her name is Queen.
Is it Queen Elizabeth?
Yes.
I don't know. Who knows? Pretty sure. Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not her. It was like the one in like the early 1900s. I don't know which one that one is. Whichever one that one is, she was using it all the time, having teas made for her migraines and her menstrual cramps, and it was just a big part of our medicine cabinet. And now,
well, even our first president, right? What about George Washington? He smoked hemp out of his. It was a hemp, but it was out of his pipe.
Yeah, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
It's crazy when you think about all these things. Yeah. People don't know these things.
People don't know that this policy of prohibition didn't actually start until 1937. So prior to the last 80, 90 years, right? 90 years, this was completely illegal all throughout the U.S.
And from what I understand, Doctor, wasn't it? I'm sorry to interrupt, but wasn't the original like prohibition the reason why? Wasn't it like very rooted in racism?
Well, yeah, the original prohibition had a number of different factors involved. There were the racists, right? So people were consuming cannabis. The plant technically is called the cannabis plant. As a matter of policy and legality, it's called the marijuana plant. You know, marijuana is a slang that the Mexican immigrants were using. So they called it marijuana, and the xenophobes in the U.S., in order to rile up fear and distrust, started calling it marijuana and saying this is the stuff that those foreigners, you know, the Mexicans and the blacks and the black people, a lot of jazz musicians and people who were in the speakeasies and things like that, they smoked a lot of cannabis too. And said, if you allow this to propagate throughout the country, this marijuana, this marijuana, it's going to lead to the downfall of society, just like alcohol has. Remember, alcohol prohibition had just ended, and there was still a large segment of policymakers who were not happy with that, who wanted to control and legislate behavior. And if you get that, so that's one group that was involved, those who still felt that they should be the moral police of everyone else. And then there's the group that were afraid of, you know, Mexicans and blacks. As a matter of fact, the ads used to say, this will lead to white women cavorting with Negroes and Mexicans. Like, whoa. It's like,
whoa.
You know, this would, if
out.
You smoke weed, watch out, right? Whoa. White women cavorting with Negroes and Mexicans. It's like, you know, this is what they were using to drum up fear. And then you had a few other things. You had Bayer aspirin. Bayer had recently, or was about to lose its patent on aspirin, so you can make generic versions of it. And like I said, a lot of people were already using hemp and cannabis as a medicine. So Bayer was, you know, being that company, of course, like any other company, wants to create a circumstance where they would eliminate a competition. If you have all these cannabis users out there using that for pain as opposed to aspirin, but you can get rid of them, hell yeah, you know, you can get rid of them. And you know who else was involved? You also had the lumber and paper industry.
And oil too, right?
Well, we weren't using petroleum. We weren't using it that much for petroleum, for plastics, but the textiles. Hemp had lost its foothold on textiles, second to cotton with the invention of the cotton gin sometime earlier, but it was still a source of paper. And you had all these guys that were kind of like, dude, we got forests full of trees out here. We can just cut them down. Like, what are you guys talking about with this hemp nonsense? We got all of Oregon we can cut down. So
and then you use the government to do your bidding, and that's frustrating.
Yeah. So then you get this like nice kind of motley crew of characters who all found a reason to support this, and it went through. It was the Marijuana Prohibition and Tax Act of 1937, and that eventually led to the Controlled Substances Act, with marijuana being classified as a Schedule I drug and all its extracts, meaning THC and CBD. And what that meant was that there's nothing in that plant that was of any benefit. So no research, there was nothing that it was completely illegal. There was only one institution in the U.S., I think it was Mississippi State, the University of Mississippi, that had a contract with the government that allowed them to do some research with that. But yeah, man, big long history of marijuana prohibition in the U.S.
Well, let's talk about your transition to this, because your NFL career was cut short. You had an injury. Can you walk us through the details, and was that the catalyst for you researching medical cannabis, or did that come later?
That actually came later, but looking back on it, now from where I am now, from this vantage point, I can say, not to get all creepy, and like I can say it happened for a reason. There's things that happen, and at the time you're like, why is this happening? Well, that happened for a reason. I had decided that I was going to be a football player. The moment like I started playing football, I was just like, I love this. I went to
That was
high
me
school.
too.
Yeah,
I feel you.
I went to right. There's something about it.
Yeah.
Like, so I went to
Yep.
high school. Actually, my plan was to be an astronaut. That had always been my childhood dream.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. So that was my childhood dream. I went to an engineering and science high school in Brooklyn Tech. They had an aeronautic engineering major. So I used to commute from Queens to Brooklyn, which was like an hour and a half, 2 hours each way to get to school. But I was like, hey, I'm going to go to this school. I'm going to major in aero. I'm going to get into the Air Force Academy. I'm going to go through the Air Force Academy. I'm going to go to the astronaut training program. And then I'm going to become, like, I had it all, like, boom, boom, boom. And I started playing football, and I was like, man, I really like this. As a matter of fact, I could see myself doing this for a living. Right. So
that was me. That was me. But we can't all make it past. We can't all make it past college.
Yeah, exactly. And I was in New York too, so I played football. It wasn't like a hotbed of football. It's not like being down in Miami or Texas somewhere, Cali, where football. Okay, New York is basketball, so it was kind of like a pipe dream. I kept it to myself. Started playing football. Got better. Got all the accolades. As a matter of fact, got a scholarship offer from the Air Force Academy, which is they showed up one day. It was that was actually one of the highlights of my life. Just seeing those guys in the locker room after a game and having a conversation, because they're all in their uniforms, and it's really impressive. It's really impressive as a kid to look at these dudes and be like, holy crap, this is I'll get to wear that uniform. So I eventually wound up not going to the Air Force Academy. And, I signed with the Bills and shredded my knee my rookie year.
All right. So your NFL career was cut short due to injury. So I'm just curious. First of all, can you walk us through the details? And was that the catalyst for you researching medical cannabis, or did that come later?
So the injury was actually one of the worst knee injuries you can get. I had a torn ACL, anterior cruciate ligament, MCL, medial collateral ligament, and PCL, which is a posterior cruciate ligament. Plus, I had real bad tears of my medial meniscus.
I had all of that except for the PCL. So you
that too.
That's bad. Welcome to the club. So, they weren't putting people back together with those kind of injuries back then. This was back in 1995. They still aren't. It's still something that's really difficult to do, and it's a rarity when someone recovers from that. I think Willis McGahee is one of the rare examples of someone who had that kind of injury
over and over, both legs.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, incredible stuff. And I would tell you, at the time, I wasn't aware of how significant that injury would be in my life. At this point in my life, I kind of was like, hey, this is the end of it. Actually, I wasn't even aware of it. When I got hurt, realistically, it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt at all. Wow. I just couldn't figure out why my foot was pointing in the opposite direction. Kind of like, why is my foot pointing? I'm telling you the truth. I was sitting there looking at my foot, and I was like, was my foot always like that? That's weird. I swear to God, I was just like, that is weird.
You're like, that can't be normal.
Yeah. The only other thing I remember, it was just during practice, was that I heard a sound which sounded like someone tearing like some denim jeans or something. It was kind of like a big rip, like a.
I had a few pops too, but I was different than you. I cried like a girl. Like my friend said, I've never heard of like that. I was like, oh my God,
dude. It didn't hurt at all. It did not hurt at all. So I, then they kind of, figured out that, hey, because they couldn't tell because of the amount of swelling in the area by the time we got the MRI done, could not tell the nature or extent of the injury. And when you do the regular orthopedic test, like the Lachman draw test, I wasn't unstable. My quadriceps and hamstrings and surrounding muscles were so strong that you couldn't elicit any instability. But, good doctors can tell from like a number of things. So like, dude, man, you probably tore your ACL, and you probably have some cartilage damage. We're going to go in there with the scope, and because we think there may be some other stuff, and we'll find it and fix it. And I was like, all right, cool. And I was thinking to myself, hopefully, just a little cartilage there, and I'll be all right. But they found, I think we waited and we did another MRI, and let some of the swelling go down so we can get better images. And, it was like, hey, you're going to need this ACL repair. And I remember going to the library. I remember like, whoa, ACL knee reconstruction. This is like the real deal. I better find out as much as I can about this. So I went to the library. At the time, this is in the 90s. So there was no like Google. You couldn't just like, hey, I'm going to start. You had to like go to the library. Yeah, man. I limped my behind over to the library. I got like stuff on microfilm where you had to kind of like.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you got to scroll through it. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to like, there was like a wheel or something like turn. It was like, yeah, you remember that, right? So it was like the microfilm stuff. And then when you want to get it printed, you had to like pay like 10 cents for print.
Oh my goodness.
A bunch of nonsense. And I came back to the team physician, Dr. Richard Weiss. And he had an interesting story because he was a mechanical engineer, and he was, one of the projects he worked on was the sliding glass, like the sliding patio door.
Wow.
That was one of his things.
Oh,
he worked for like, yeah. And he didn't get into medicine until his late 40s. And he said to me, he's like, dude, what are you doing with all this stuff? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I want, I've been reading up. I went and did some research. I know what kind of surgery I want, and I want it because this is what the data shows. And, this is the surgery I want because there's a less chance of re-injury. And he looked at me and said, have you ever thought about becoming a doctor? And I was chuckling like, doctor.
You're like,
come
no.
on, man. You guys, like, you're going to fix my knee up.
I got to go to the NFL. I got to play this NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, dude, swear to God. I was like, dude, you're going to fix my knee up. I'm going to play 10 more years, and maybe I'll make it to the Hall of Fame, retire. And he, standing next to me, I still remember this to this day, he like patted me on the shoulder, grabbed my shoulder, and said, sure you are. And that was it. I was like, what? I was there, and I'm like, what?
You're like,
how dare you? How dare you condescend me? And so after that, they put my knee back together. Obviously, I didn't recover, as expected. I didn't recover. I never got back to where I was. And then I went through like the typical period of time where people who stop playing sports, their career ends. Kind of you lose your identity. You don't know what you want to do with yourself. Kind of like I was all in on the football thing. Yeah, look for something else. I was all in on this football thing. I wasn't going to do the astronaut thing anymore. And I wound up going back to my alma mater, Hofstra, and becoming a strength and just to be around the game. Like, I do something that's familiar. Wow. And I was like, you know what? Let me start some grad school. And since I spent so much time and effort training and rehabbing for myself, I can pass this information on. So I became the strength and conditioning coach for the football team while I got my master's in phys ed. And I then moved on, got involved in regular, I got involved in personal training. And then through that, got involved with the American College of Sports Medicine and the National Strength and Conditioning Association.
Oh, yeah, I was
NSCA. Stuff with them.
I did stuff with NSCA.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. So I lectured for them. I did their symposiums, which was a great thing. And then I taught for a number of like gyms and certification agencies. I really got into like the health and fitness world. Mm-hmm. I got involved with the college. Got a job with the college. I was running their wellness center, and I was a professor in the Department of Health and Exercise Science. But 2002, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer for a second time. Mm-hmm. And in 2003, we had, 2003 and 2004, we had a talk. Just one of those things where like a mother and son talk. I went by her one afternoon to see her, and she was going through her chemo and she wasn't doing well. And she was prescribed opioids, which again, these are like all things that happened in my past. At the time, I wasn't aware of the significance of them. But, there were days where she was on her Percocets or her Oxys and she was just drooling because, she was in so much pain from the chemo that the only way that she could keep it down was for her to take high levels of opioids. So she was basically a zombie. Yeah. And they constipated her, made her feel terrible. She's like, but I'm in so much pain that it's either that or this. So we were talking and she said to me, hey, you come here all the time to hang out with me, but there's something missing. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, when you were playing football and you were doing that, there was a fire and an excitement and enthusiasm about your person. Because right now I see somebody who's kind of going through the motions. She's like, are you happy? Because she literally asked me, are you happy?
Moms do that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean, am I happy? I don't have any complaints. And I started going off a checklist of like, hey, what do I have to complain about? Listen, I make good money. I have a great job. I have my own, bar. And she's like, all right, but are you happy? And I just couldn't say it. I literally could not say, yes, I'm happy. Every time she asked me if I was happy, I came up with another, like, excuse. Well, I'm doing some stuff with this magazine, and like, and she's like, yeah, are you happy? I got like 2 months off, and yeah. So she's like, listen, dude, why don't you? She's like, you're still young. Why don't you go do something that makes you happy? And I was like what? And she's like, well, when you were a kid, didn't you want to be an astronaut? I'm like, wow. No, those days.
You're like, those days are gone.
Yeah, I'm too old for that now. She's like, well, weren't you interested in some other things? I'm like, no, that was like kid stuff, And she says, well, what about all this stuff that you're doing with the body all the time now? She's like, you're doing all this training and writing and all this stuff with like, she's like, all this stuff with like the body. Why don't you become a doctor? And I said to her, yo, no way. It's like, at this age, at that time, I think I was 32. I was 32 years old. It's like, at this age, it's like, you want me to go back to school and do all that work at this age? And then she challenged me.
Wow.
And she said to me, well, you never struck me as the kind of person who was afraid of hard work.
Oof.
And when she said that to me, I still remember all of this clearly because it resonated with me. When she said that to me, I was like, realistically, if that's my only if that's my only beef is that it's hard work, that's not really a beef. This is my thing. I do that.
Yeah, like, right. It's in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, that is right. Like, that's my thing.
You're like, I can work hard.
Like, yeah. I was like, yeah, what are you talking about? What? So I remember going home that night, and lying in my bed and thinking about it. I'm like, man. And the interesting thing about it was during this time, I was kind of dealing with feelings of inadequacy because here my mother was going, suffering from cancer. I was fortunate. I had people in my family who were close to me, or really close friends who were physicians, and we had another cousin who was a physician. But I would go in the hospital and speak with her doctors and stuff, and I was kind of like, man, I really don't know what these people are talking about. Like, this is like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. I know you're trying to explain things to us, and my mom's first language is in English. We were born in Haiti, so she speaks French and Creole. English is a third language. Same thing with me. I'm still working on my English. Now I got like Spanish mixed in there. Like, I'm like
Miami now.
Yeah,
Spanish.
Yeah, I mean,
your clinic is in Wynwood.
I said it.
Are you in Wynwood?
We're in Little Haiti now.
Oh, because it was Wynwood. Wynwood used to be part of Little Haiti. Wasn't
now
it?
It's all nice.
Before it got gentrified.
Mm.
Yeah, now it's all fancy.
Doing the same thing to Little Haiti. So I was just kind of like, man, you know what? How is it that I feel like I'm smart enough? I got into the Air Force Academy. Well, I got a scholarship offer to the Air Force Academy. Like, and I'm like, absolutely, these people are talking about my mom and it's life or death, and I have no idea what to do. I have no idea. Like, I'm completely helpless at this moment. And I was like, you know what? That's not good. I remember saying to myself, that's not good. I can do better. So that night, I called one of my older brothers. I'm the youngest of four boys, and he's an attorney. And I called him. I was like, "Yo, man, I think I'm gonna go to medical school." I thought he was gonna say like, "What, dude? You're 32 or whatever." And he was just like, "Oh, that's great. I think you can do it. Good luck." That's great.
You're like, now I really got to do it.
Oh, yeah, right. Like, now I put it out into the universe, and like, if I don't do it, now I'm this guy.
I better get to work.
That's a great family, man. That is a great circle of people you got.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I looked out. Actually, not one person at the time that I said, this is what I'm going to do. Not one person said, hey, it's going to do this. Everyone was kind of like, listen, you want to do it, you can do it. So it's like, yeah,
amazing.
Well, I'm going to go do it. So she wound up passing. My mother wound up passing in August of 2004. And after her death, I was just like, well, time for me to go. Realistically, I was like, this is it. This is like, I have no reason to be in New York anymore. It's time for me. I want to go be a doctor. I know I have to take all these classes. I got to go back to undergrad and take my basic sciences all over and do all that stuff. So I packed my stuff up, moved to Miami Beach, because that's where I always wanted to live if I left New York. So I packed my stuff up, moved to Miami Beach. The next semester, I think winter or whatever, spring of 2005 I started my first classes at FIU as like a freshman in biology. I still remember all this stuff. And awesome. Kind of like, I didn't want to tell people while I was there. They were like, yo, what are you doing here? I'm like, trying to like do my thing. Not like
not telling the details.
Yeah, just like, hey, listen, I'm old as hell. I'm 33. I'm a freshman because I want to become a doctor. Like, because realistically, it's such a difficult path that a lot of people fall off when they're young. And when you get older, it gets harder and harder. And I wound up having a child. I got married, like a lot of things happened. I was working full time, so I had to do all this stuff, while I was still trying to be a student and get the grades to get into medical school. Well, it all happened, right? It all happened. And then about 2009, this is what led me to the cannabis space. About 2009, I started suffering out of nowhere, really out of the blue. I started suffering from like debilitating headaches. Don't know, now I know why. Again, these are things that happened in my past, and now I'm looking back at them and I can see how it all fits in. But I didn't know why my head was killing me, and it felt like it was being torn apart, like somebody was digging their fingers into my skull and trying to pull it apart. Wow. And I started suffering from bad insomnia. So I would get these headaches and I couldn't sleep. And I started taking, and so regularly I would take Tylenols and Advils for my headaches, and I would take Benadryl or something to be able to sleep. Problem with that was whenever I took something to sleep, whether it was Benadryl or then later on, I wound up getting a prescription for Xanax to sleep and anxiety because I wasn't sleeping. It wasn't sleeping.
Yeah.
My head is killing me. I wound up with anxiety, which I was like, what am I, of all the people in the world that should have anxiety? It's not me. And which was anxiety provoked. I was like, what am I anxious about? I'm pretty cool. Like I'm doing what I set out to do. Like I would sit there and say to myself, I don't understand why I feel like this because I'm not. I was like, I'm confident in what I'm about to do, or like I don't know what's wrong with me.
Yeah,
it's really, it's one of those things. I don't know.
It's a physical issue too.
Yeah.
You were probably confused because like anxiety can present very physical symptoms, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you got the palpitations, you have the sweating, you have the feeling of nausea. You got all this stuff. And you're just like, why do I feel like this? It's not like I'm unprepared for something. It's not like this is something new. So this is the same stuff I do every day. And every day I come in here and I feel like it's going to be the end of the world now. There's nothing happening here. Literally, I was like, there's nothing happening here that I'm not in control of. And that was driving me crazy. So I wound up on that stuff. And every time I took some sort of drug, my body didn't metabolize it well. So when I took the Benadryl, I was groggy for the entire next day. If I drank coffee to get over the grogginess, then I was up all night because my body doesn't get rid of the coffee. Like
those are some interesting genetic tips you got.
Yeah. Yes. Whatever I take stays in me. And when I went away to medical school, what I found out was the more that I worked out and exercised, the better I felt, the better I slept. My headaches went away. The anxiety was gone. So I would work out like a maniac. And in med school, everyone used to, it was like a running joke that you knew that like at 5:30, you would see me on the road running. Like everybody knew at this time, like if you can't find him, you know where
something happened.
That would be, right. If he must have got run over, then you'll find him on the side of the road dead. But I wound up running about 6 miles a day. But I played linebacker, so I was a big dude, running about 6 miles a day, plus hitting the gym, working out. I used to sneak into the gym. That's how much I was like, I need to work out. So I would sneak into the gym when it was closed. I would break into it and work out, and then sneak back out of the gym like, hey, nobody was here.
It was like
right?
that.
So, yeah, it was. And what happened was I wound up overtraining, of course, right? Which I should have known with my history in exercise science. I should have known, but my body was crazy.
Coaches make the athletes though, like because you're a coach too, and I have the same issue. Like I've done things in powerlifting meets, for instance, that I told people never to do. But we make bad.
You push your body.
Don't follow our own advice. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I wound up getting something called exertional compartment syndrome. And that requires a surgery called a fasciotomy where they cut the connective tissue around the muscle to allow the muscle to breathe and expand because it was cutting off circulation.
Wow.
Muscle was so I got this fasciotomy, which was a result of overtraining, just running and training way too much. And of course, after the surgery, they're like, dude, we had to slice your leg open and keep it open. You're going to be in a lot of pain. I'm like, I am in a lot of pain. So here's some oxys and here's some Percocets. And I was like, dang it. Because even in college, I didn't like to get those. I still had, what's funny is I still had I had pills dating back to 1997 in a big Ziploc bag. And I threw them all out, I think, this past November. But I had a collection of these things. And I was like, man, you guys have something different, right? Like, no, this is standard. So day one, I took a Percocet. And for the life of me, that had to be one of the most terrible experiences I ever had. I felt like my soul was leaving my body. And he's like, so you're going to go off and meet your mom right now. Like, thank you for taking this. Right. Like, I really was like, what is this? My body completely rejected it. So I took one Percocet and I was like, I can't take that again. Like, I felt like I was dying. Yeah, I'll try the Oxy. Yeah. So I took the Oxy the next day and I felt that was a different kind of death. That Oxy felt like I was like, the Percocet was like, somebody snatched my soul out of my body. But the Oxy was like, somebody like an elephant was squeezing the life out of me and I was paralyzed. And I was just like, this is just as bad as the other one. I remember lying in bed with the Oxy and just like, what is like, I can't do it. So I wound up not taking any of those things. And I stuck to the Tylenols for my headache. I was like, I'll take the Tylenol and the Advils that I've been taking for my headaches. And then I was put on the Xanax for the anxiety. And my girlfriend at the time was like, hey, you can smoke a joint, probably make all this stuff go away. And, of course, being a know-it-all, I was like, oh, no, I don't. As a matter of fact, you don't know that stuff is illegal. And that there's no truth behind it. And that people go to jail and blah, 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 blah. I gave her all the traditional, lines. I gave her all of it. And she was like, well, I'm just telling you. She's like, hey,
she's like, all right, enjoy
your pain. Enjoy your pain, your anxiety. Yeah, enjoy
Meanwhile, your soul's like getting ripped out.
Yeah, right. And she would come to me like, we wound up getting married. She would come to me and be like, hey, dude, man, like, you're up all night. How you gonna go to the hospital in the morning? I was like, I'll just suck it up. And she's like, but you're going to wind up drinking coffee. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to drink the coffee because I drink the coffee, I'll be up all night. Right. Oh and she's like, you could smoke a joint. And I was like, nah, I'm not smoking weed. I don't smoke weed. I live a natural life. I don't do drugs. Blah, blah, blah. I will drink though. I used to try to drink myself to sleep. It's kind of like, it's like, you get that desperation. Like I need something. There's got to be something here. Right. And think about how stupid that is. Like, hey, I'm gonna try to, I'm gonna try to drink some alcohol to get some sleep, but I refuse to smoke this weed. And after about 6 months of this, one day I just woke up and I was like, I can't take it anymore. Like, I think I'm gonna try it. And so I called. I remember calling. A lot of people in med school smoked. And like all this stuff at the time for a non-smoker, it was like, I don't even know how you guys even function. You're smoking weed and you got to study all this material. For me, I was like, there's no way I could like smoke or be drinking or do anything. Like I got to exercise and study. I don't know about you guys, but this is what gets me through. But I don't know how you guys are smoking all this weed. So I knew who they were. So I gave one of them like I met him. I was like, hey, listen, man, I'm looking for some stuff. Even then, I even know the weed slang stuff. I was like making stuff like, hey, you got some of the green stuff. I was trying to like, what do people use?
They're probably like,
this guy's a narc. Like, where did you get this guy, sir?
100%.
So, right? So it gives me like telephone number to his connect, and I wound up calling the dude or texting him. I remember being really nervous. I remember thinking to myself, like, this is how it all ends for me. After all this work, I'm going to go call this guy to get like, $20, I mean, $20 a weed or whatever it is. I'm going to get arrested. I was like, there's going to be a sting. The cops are going to be there. Then they're like, I'll be taken away in handcuffs. They'll be like, former football player.
No more med school.
Football player.
No more, yeah. Former football player and current medical student arrested for marijuana possession, and then people are like, oh man, he had so much promise. Why would he be smoking? Why would he throw it all away for weed? I remember I was like, oh man, I don't want to be one of those dudes. People be like, man, and then of course there'd be like a hater that'd be like, yeah, I always knew there's something wrong about you. Yeah.
Man, that's that anxiety.
That's that anxiety.
Yeah, right. That's like, I always knew there's something up with that guy. I'm not surprised, right? So, I go get weed. I'm mad. I'm like super, super nervous, mad, like anxious, like, man, this is not a good idea. But at the same point, it had gotten so bad for me that this had become a good idea. It was like, there's nothing else. So I get the weed. She had to roll the joint for me, actually. I didn't even know how to roll a joint. So I got the weed and she rolls the joint and she's like, take a couple of hits. I take it and automatically I start choking. Like, I'm like, I don't smoke, right? Right? And I took another hit. I swear to you, though, that night, headaches were gone. The anxiety was gone. And I went to sleep and I slept like a baby. I remember that, like waking up the next morning, like, you know what I did the next morning? I was like, nah, it wasn't the weed. It was just coincidence. I don't believe in it. I was still like a skeptic. This couldn't have been the weed. Nah. So I was at the hospital all day long thinking about it. Like, man, I can't wait to go home and try this again. That night, the second night, smoked another joint. Went to sleep, headaches gone. I think I slept for like 12 hours that night. And I woke up the next day. And I felt like a new person. Like I hadn't slept that well. Yeah, I was not groggy. I had no headaches. My leg wasn't hurting me. Like all the stuff that I was complaining about, it's kind of like it was all gone. And that was the day I was convinced because it's like, there's no way this happened. Like, for years I've been trying to go to sleep. For years I've been trying to get rid of these headaches. I've been trying to get rid of this leg pain for 6 months now. And I was like, for it to go away twice back to back after I smoked the weed, I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
And the third day, so that day I went home and I was like, well, I don't like smoking it because it makes me choke, right? It makes me cough. I'm not a big smoker. So I started YouTubing stuff, how to make your own tea. So I made my own little weed tea. I would leave it in the fridge at the end of the day. After I was done with the hospital and done with all my studying, I would drink my tea and boom, everything would like lights out. Everything was cool.
Wow.
And during that time, I think this was like, this was like 2011. I remember saying to her and myself, like, if I get a chance to do this for other people, like to give somebody else this kind of experience that I had, because, realistically it was bad. Like I can tell you, like, it was really bad. I can't explain it. Like when my patients come and speak to me and they tell me about their situation and how bad it is and how much they're suffering, I'm always like, I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
Because this has been this was kicking my behind the same way. And just to like have no recourse and feel like there's nowhere for you to go. And then, you're like, all right, I'll try the weed.
Right.
All right, whatever.
Fine.
Like to get to that point, if you're
and think about like all the time you could have saved, man. Like that's
all the time. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. All the time, all the misery, like the quality of life. My mood was different. I would have mood swings and things like that. So, fast forward to 2016 and we're having this election and it's on the docket and I'm like, I'm all in. Like, so I'm like, becoming a medical marijuana activist, and I'm posting on Facebook and I'm doing stuff. And like, I even went to the polling place on like, went to the polling place for election day. It was like, hey, if you guys, I don't care who you're voting for, like for president or whatever, but vote yes on Amendment 2. And it passed. Right. And when it passed, I was like, I'm going in. Once they get the regulations set up, I'm in. And that regulations went into effect in 2017 in October, and I started my company like a day after I received the email that it was okay, and then I saw my first patient in December. He's a retired football player. And that was it. And from there, the journey just kept going. But, looking back on it, my first patient was a retired football player. And the only reason that he came to see me was because I played football. So that time that I played in the NFL played a role now, 20 some odd years later. It played a role in this current iteration of what I'm doing. Then I started doing my research project. The research project, in fact, it involves studying the effects of CBD and quality of life on retired athletes and retired pro athletes. And again, I got a bunch of guys who play football in the NFL, and the only reason that they're really involved is that they trust me because I played. I was in the league. So I take care of patients with cancer. My mom had cancer. So I kind of think of it. Even now, like my day-to-day activities, when I get up in the morning, I love what I do. Like I'm all in. Like I'm not going through the motions. Like, my mother could see me now. She wouldn't say like, hey, she'd be like, see, I told you. All right. Wow. And I'm really grateful for that because, I needed that, right? If she had never told me to do that, I would have never been in medical school. I would have just had these headaches and all this stuff for no reason. I would have never figured it out. And, I did go to medical school and I did all this stuff. And, that was because of what she went through. And here I am now, full circle. I'm able to do that for other people, right? Which is great. I'm able to help retired athletes. So, it's actually been a really great, personal journey for me. Of course, it was
fulfilling,
very involved. Yeah, very fulfilling. It was very involved. It was a long journey, but I'm doing research now. I'm a principal investigator of my own research study, which is the first of its kind, CBD and retired athletes. And, this is great stuff. My kids get to go to work with me all the time.
Wow.
So I got 2 kids. My boys get to come. They go to workshops and lectures. They get to go to events that they normally wouldn't be able to go to. As a kid, you get to meet all these athletes and stars and this and that. And I'm always like, hey, I'm going to take a picture of you and so. And these dudes are like, whatever. They don't know.
This is the life they know. It's the only life they know. It's like our boys, they have such better lives than we had, and they can't really appreciate it because they don't know anything else. It's like nothing to compare it to,
Yeah, it's great though, but and I get to educate them on things.
Yeah,
and I could get to combine all these other things that I've done with health and exercise and wellness, right? So it's understanding, for example, why I was running so much, why I needed to exercise so much, because during that, this is why I didn't know at the time why am I running 6 miles a day? Like I'm 200 and, I think at the time, I might have been like 225, but like ripped. Right?
Yeah, but 225 running 6 miles every day. That adds up.
No good. Yeah. And I needed that 220. I needed that distance because you ever heard of you guys know runner's high, but what happens when you get a runner's high is you get this release of neurotransmitters and endorphins. What precipitates that release is a release of cannabinoids. You have an endocannabinoid. So you have this system in your body that produces cannabinoids, which are the molecules that you find in plants. The plants have phytocannabinoids, which are either a copy of, they kind of copy what our cannabinoids do, or they augment them. But when you do things like that, like you're running and exercising, or you're eating a great meal, or having sex, or something that will cause this release, it's your endocannabinoid system that is the machine behind that. And I didn't know that, the reason I was running was because my body was asking. The reason I was working out is my body was like, dude, when you do this, you secrete a lot of cannabinoids. And as a result, it makes you feel better.
Wow.
And,
amazing.
And yeah, so full circle, that injury, I understand why I was doing what led to me overtraining and getting injured. And now I incorporate it into my treatment programs with people. So we're not just using the plant to kind of like as a cure-all, but it's understanding, hey, listen, your body is a remarkable machine. If sometimes it needs just a little bit of a boost, you can give it that. But, it tries to self-regulate and it tries to repair itself. It tries to maximize itself. So if you can, start being active or getting involved in activities that bring you happiness and joy, where getting sunlight, vitamin D, it was another thing. So I'm darker skinned. We tend to have, or we could have, vitamin D deficiency.
Yep.
Need to get sunlight, right? Yep. When I was outside running, I was getting my sunlight. Like that's, It all tied in. It all tied in was like, hey, this is why you needed to do this. And I didn't understand it at the time, like why all these things were happening and the connection to one another. And so full circle, now I'm doing research with athletes. Now I take care of cancer patients. And now I consult with other physicians who send me their patients, whether it's pediatric or psychologists, psychiatrists, or oncologists who send me their patients because, hey, you're a voice of reason. We're not going to send our patients to a card mill. We're going to send our patient to like a quote unquote real doctor. I'm not going to, but somebody who's actually,
right,
putting the time in this and going to take good care of them. And yeah, I'm happy. I can't complain.
Your passion, it really does come through. It's really exciting to listen to. Seriously.
All right, Dr. Damas. So I wanted to ask you, because we discovered Dr. Daniel Amen's work a little over a year ago, and we're huge fans. He's known for his work with patients who have neurological or psychiatric conditions and how they present on brain scans. As a radiologist, it's our understanding that you have incorporated brain scans into your practice. Have you been able to quantify results of cannabis treatment and how they present in subsequent brain scans or anything like that?
One of the things that I'm doing with my study involves CBD and retired athletes. And what we have is a device called the Wabi scan. And it's an actual portable EEG, which is an electroencephalogram, if you guys are familiar with that. It's like when they put the pads on your head and the stick in the ear. So this device is actually proprietary hardware and software that was developed by a group of like super smart Nobel, award nominee or even winners, maybe out of University of Colorado. What it does is allow you to do these kind of real-time scans and then get a pictographical display of the person's brain afterwards. So in our athletes, we can give them the CBD. We can actually scan their brain beforehand. They do like a number of tests, like cognitive tests, memorization tests. There's like skill tests, task completion, these kind of things. And we give it to them before we give them CBD, and after we give them the CBD, and then we give them a period of time to wash out. And we do that over a period of 12 weeks. So it's a 3-month study. What we want to see is if there's actual correlation, because the theory is through other laboratory, through other scientific journals that we've read in the past, and experimentation in the past, was that the cannabinoids, whether it's THC or CBD or other cannabinoids, have this ability to increase electrical signaling in the brain or modulate it in areas that are hyperactive, or increase in areas that have decreased activity, increase secretion of neurotransmitters like serotonin and noradrenaline, all this wonderful stuff that it can do in your brain, right? So, but doesn't really do that, right? So it's kind of theorized. So we're able to see that here. Now, the one thing I can tell you, my study is a double-blind study, meaning I don't know what my participants are getting, and they don't know what they're getting. But usually in these studies, and where there's a therapeutic portion of the study, that means, hey, one side is getting placebo and one side maybe, it's getting the medicine, for example, for lack of a better term, then we can pretty much, if we start seeing changes over time, pretty much at some point you kind of like, yeah, that person's in the treatment group or that person's in the control group. Because, your hypothesis starts being proven right as the study goes along if they're in the treatment group. So what we've noticed is that the players that we've had, we can look at the data. You can see areas in their brain that are increasing in signal intensity, like the power of the electrical signaling in their brain, 3-4 times greater than when they started.
Is this specific waves, doctor? Is it like alpha, theta, or is this something different, completely different?
So I actually don't get into that level of it yet because I'm still tabulating the raw data. So we haven't gone down to different because the study protocols, because it's a pilot study, we're studying which formulations are the best. So some of the guys are taking, for example, pills. Some are taking nasal sprays. Some have sublingual formulations, different types of sublingual, liposomal. And then they also had different amounts of product that they were taking.
This sounds massive. This sounds so massive.
It sounds like a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work. Yeah. It's split between me, my crew here in Miami, and we have another crew out in Denver. So the study's split into two halves, basically. So most of the research team is in Colorado. They'll fly down every 2 weeks to give me a hand, which I find is really convenient for them because we started in the winter. So it's really convenient for you guys to be leaving Denver every 2 weeks and fly down to Miami.
Yeah, it's all for the cause. It's all for the cause.
Yeah, it's all, yeah, right? It's nothing to do with the fact that it's 85 degrees. Beautiful.
I'm sure these jokes have been happening a ton. Not so much now.
Listen, they're like, they don't even deny it. They're like, yeah, like, what do you think?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, right? Like, who do you think, genius? No, let's do it the other way around and have you fly to Colorado. Nah, that's not gonna happen.
I love it. And it's 3 months, right? You said it's a 3 month treatment? Okay.
3 months. So we've got the first group of guys who are finishing all their treatment, and then they get into a surveillance mode for a month where we don't give them any product, and we just every day. Yeah, it is actually. Now that you mentioned it, there are a lot of moving parts because there's also an app that they download. They download it onto their phone. Every day, twice a day, they have to report on how they're feeling. How's your pain? How's your mood? How's your insomnia? How's your body aches and all that stuff? And they do that. So they still have to do that for, they have the app. They have to take their medicine every day. They have to come in and get, go through the EEG and the WABI testing. They have another test, which is from the Roberto app. It's a cognitive screening. Yeah, so they've got, it is. So that's why we haven't gone really deep into tabulating the data and breaking things down because there's a lot of stuff. So that's going to take some time. But the promising part about it is what I can see from the raw data and seeing the change. And then hearing the guys just report, you come in and ask them, how are you feeling compared to 2 weeks ago? And they'll tell you, listen, I can remember things better now. My mood is better. I'm sleeping better. And these are all things that we always kind of attributed it to cannabis, right? We've had studies in the past. People said, well, when I use cannabis, my pain is better, my mood is better. And the great thing for us is when someone says, well, my cognition is better, like my thinking is clearer and I can remember better. We're putting them through all these tests while they have the EEG on, the helmet on, and it's telling us this is their performance. This is how much electrical power is going through their brain. This is where it started. I mean, we've got guys who, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. That this is where it was when they started, and now, and it gives you a beautiful little color graph of this, and I'll put something up soon, probably in the next week or so, on one of our social media or online somewhere that shows you some of this data, and it's incredible. The last bit of data that you get is this wonderful color graphic of a person's brain, and it tells you, kind of interprets the electrical signaling based on colors, where blue would be like low signal and red would be high signaling. You want more reds in your brain because that means it's active in signaling, and you can see like the baseline somebody's brain is almost completely blue, and then 8 weeks later, you just see this big sea of red in their brain.
Wow.
Which, which is, and they'll see it, and you'll see their numbers, their performance on the test. It's real good stuff. So I'm really happy to be in the space and making this contribution to it. It's really, it's cool, and I enjoy going out and speaking and doing things like spreading the word and helping break down the stigma and adding a little bit of credibility to cannabis, CBD, cannabinoids as a medicine, but to contribute in terms of adding to the knowledge base, so adding to the data. That makes me feel really good to say, hey, listen, we're not just guessing. We're not just guessing, and I'm not just saying things. We've done research, and this is what it shows. So I'm really psyched and pumped up about that part of it.
Well, we are too, because the work you're doing is so difficult, because you're talking about, you're looking at so many different endpoints. You're looking at pain, management. That's probably going to rely more on THC. And then you're looking at inflammation, and that's probably going to rely more on CBD. So I cannot imagine just how cumbersome it was to design something like this. So, I mean, seriously, kudos. And you guys are getting so much data.
Yeah, it was actually, it was really hard just to get the IRB, which is the independent board. Yeah. So, it was hard going through that, because when we started back in 2017, it's still technically illegal to research CBD, because it was Schedule 1. It was a Schedule 1 compound along with THC. So you have to make sure that all your products, you were wording your everything in a way that you were saying all your CBD was coming from hemp, which would then make it legal, right? So it's like if your CBD was coming from cannabis, from marijuana, it was illegal. But if it was coming from hemp, it would be legal. So you had to do that. But, because you were kind of operating on this gray area, everything had to be like as tight and as sharp and as well put together as possible. We had a lot of blowback from the IRBs, but I give lots of credit to the crew in Colorado, which is Cannabis Clinicians of Colorado, and the team there, because they did a lot of the legwork. Like, I guess I'm the guy that goes out. I do the fundraising. Like I may have mentioned that Mike Tyson and Tyson Ranch is one of our title sponsors, and they donated a good amount of money to the study.
Yeah, and Stephanie had told us about that. Stephanie was the one who was like, she told us about that.
Yeah. So they, we had fundraising, because you couldn't get federal grant money for this. So it was like had to be privately funded. So it's my money. It was my money in the beginning and our money. And then we got some money from some other private parties. We had to recruit athletes. And that was another thing that really had to be done by shaking the trees, because the organized athlete representation things from the leagues themselves. So we have a bunch of hockey and football players in our study. And it was going through like the NFL. The NFLPA, for example, wouldn't officially support us. So you gotta.
That's interesting. That they would.
You gotta go to. No, man.
They've been so big on like the TBI stuff, and I thought that they would appreciate that.
No. You would think, right? But we actually, had to go out there and shake the trees I felt bad at times because, when you're sending emails to people all the time and you're calling them all the time, and you know that they know that the only reason they see your telephone number, it's like, oh, God, this guy again. This dude again, he's calling me. So you gotta like, sometimes I used to send text messages like, hey, it's Doc. You know why I'm calling you. Like, let's not even pretend. I'm calling to find out how your kids' games were, right?
Yeah.
You know why I'm calling you. You're supposed to come in for the study. But I'll tell you who's been money on this too, man. The Dolphins alumni, really good.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Really.
Hey, have you had a chance to meet my buddy Terry? He's the team chaplain. Terry
Boynton.
No, I haven't.
Well, if you ever do meet him, he's great. He's an amazing person. He's one of my best friends in this world. He's a really good guy.
So he's an amazing person despite being one of your best friends.
Yeah. He's one of the only reasons. He's one of my only redeeming qualities is him.
No, man. The Dolphins alumni have been really helpful. They helped me recruit other players. A couple of the older guys have connected with one another and referred to me, and that's been really, really great. So I have to give it. And being an ex-Buffalo Bill, I got to give them the props. Got to give the Dolphins guys their props because, man, I think we've got about 9 former Dolphins or something like that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So they've come through big time. Yeah, it has been.
All right, so I know, we've talked about this big study. We're super excited to hear about it, but I'm going to be a little bit selfish now because you talked about how, the cannabis helped you relax and sleep. I'm kind of curious because I'm seeing conflicting information out there, especially the research on, actual objective sleep measures, because it seems like everybody, and me personally, I would be one of those people that would say, I think, heavier amounts of THC before bed for me helps a ton. I feel awesome. But there is some conflicting data that says that maybe even CBD and THC may impact, REM sleep and deep sleep. And so I wanted to know, with your patients that you deal with, sleep issues, what does that process look like in helping them try to understand what the best combinations are for, CBD versus THC, indica, all that stuff? Have you developed any? It just seems like it's, again, so many different points all over the map, and it's just so hard to pinpoint and create a system.
Well, that's a good point, because one of the things that we have yet to develop is that every single person, every single person has a sort of different reaction to cannabinoids or cannabinoid therapy, right? So meaning that what works for me in the amount that works for me may not necessarily work for you.
Yep.
Fortunately, these compounds have a side effect profile that allows us to kind of tinker a little bit without having to worry about deleterious overdose, right? You can't, so you can't, for example, tinker with your opioid dosage because, hey, too much of that could decrease the response to decrease your respiratory rate, your respiratory drive, because that's where opioids act upon. They work in the brainstem, the medullary center, and they'll decrease that. So if you had higher levels of carbon dioxide building up, your body would automatically react to that and increase the respiratory rate. Doesn't happen with opioids on board, but cannabis doesn't work that way. So that means we can start increasing dosages and tinkering without fear of doing something horrible to ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that cannabis is without any side effects that you need to be aware of. Going from the simplest which is what we're going to talk about here, is sleep. Like one of the common side effects of cannabis is somnolence, depending on the strain and the amount that you take. For example, CBD in larger dosages causes somnolence, which is sleepiness. So it's a side effect that a lot of people look for when they're having issues with sleep. Now, how does one work their way through that, right? Well, it depends on the person. Are you someone who's even open to the idea of THC? So that's how I treat my patients. So if somebody comes to me,
I said great point, because some people you can't even go down that path until they've said, and then that way you can say, okay, then let me go down this CBD path and see if they're not too comfortable with THC now, maybe I can use CBD.
Yeah, correct. So some people may not, it may not be, THC may not even be an option because of employment reasons, because of, some other social circumstance, or it could be a personal thing, right? Hey, this is just not something I'm interested in. Okay, well, let's go down the CBD avenue, right? Go down the CBD pathway. And that's real important to understand, because I think a lot of us in the space, as you find something that really touches you, that hits home for you, and you're like, yeah, man, I'm an advocate, I'm all on board, forgetting that, hey, listen, what's good for you is not good for everybody else, right? And so we still have to make allowances for the fact that what I like, what I believe in, what works for me may not necessarily work for you, but that's great, because that's exactly what we're fighting for in this space. Hey, what works for me is cannabis. What works for somebody else may be Percocet. I'm not messing with the Percocet. That's not my thing, right? That's have the dangerous. Yeah, right. Yeah, like for me, I'm not messing with that. But legally, everyone has a right to do whatever they want. If it was me, I would say I wouldn't want to get you on the Percocets, because we know how addictive they are. And once you start down that pathway, where it can lead you is very, very bad. Whereas cannabis, not going to lead you down that pathway. So we go from CBD or THC treatments, right? We'll look and say, okay, are you interested in CBD only treatments? This is what we'll do. What we find is that sublingual or inhalation gets you the medicine in your body quickest, right? So if you inhale it, whether you vape it or you smoke it, it's going to get in your body quickest, but it's going to leave your body the quickest, right? Yeah. About 2 hours. So if you're taking CBD or cannabis, either one, and you want it to get to you quickly, you want to inhale it. Whether you're using a nebulizer or vaporizer or burning it, but it's going to get out of your system. If you're using it for sleep, now, do you have a problem with just going down to sleep? Is that what the issue is? Is that, hey, I just can't get myself to the point that I can relax and go down to sleep. But once I go down to sleep, I stay asleep for, 8 hours. Well, that's great. Well, maybe that can work for you if you do the inhalation methods, right? Yeah. Or maybe you're somebody who's like, hey, listen, my problem is not only going down to sleep, but it's frequent wakenings while I'm asleep, right? Yeah. So it's like, I can go to sleep, but I'm up every 2 hours, or I'm up every 2.5 hours. And, those constant interruptions don't allow for you to get, your full 4 sleep cycles, which should be about a minute, 20 to minute and a half each person, I think. So that's where we get like the 6 to 8 hours of sleep, because you need to go through those 4 REMs, those full sleep cycles, and they take about a minute 20 each. So if you're constantly interrupting those, you're never getting that full sleep. You wake up in the morning, despite having been in bed for 8 hours, you're only at an 80% charge.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that's good.
And 80% charge, you start feeling that. You feel it when you get out of bed, and the rest of the day. The bad thing about that 80% charge is that during the day, you're never going to get a chance to recharge it. What you'll have to do is boost it with other things, caffeine or something else. And depending on your physiology, caffeine could stay in your system a little longer than you want it.
Yep.
And guess what?
I'm a slow metabolizer. That's me. That's me. Genetically, I have that SNP that means that I metabolize the caffeine slower.
Right.
So that would be bad. And it adds up over time.
Yeah. I actually knew that. That's why I'm using this as an example. I did all my research on you. I was all in.
That's a good doctor right there.
Yeah, right there. Prepared for the podcast.
Oh man, that is awesome.
No, so that's one way to look at it. And then it's also the other substances that you take. If you're on any antidepressants, a mood stabilizer, any foods, some foods decrease your ability to metabolize some compounds. So you start drinking large amounts of grapefruit, or you're on SSRIs or something like that. So slow down your ability to metabolize certain things. So
interesting.
Again, yeah, man, that's why I get paid the big bucks. I know this stuff. Yeah, think I'm just some regular weed doctor off the street. I'm a big brain, man. Nah.
I love it.
True. So then, if we look at the CBD, right? You can have full spectrum CBD products, and you can have what they call 0% broad spectrum. Full spectrum meaning there's everything that was in the plant pretty much is in there, and then you have the isolate. It's a broad spectrum, meaning that you could just have CBD and nothing else, no terpenes, nothing else, just the CBD. We found that CBD only products tend to have less effectiveness than full spectrum products. Full spectrum products don't have a lot of THC in them. They have 0.3%, which is the legal limit naturally. But research has shown those full spectrum products give people a better therapeutic window and a better therapeutic effect. And this is what's referred to in the cannabis world as the entourage effect. Not really a great scientific name, but it's something that people use in cannabis. And basically it means the best way to simplify it is if the playoffs are going on right now in basketball, you've got your starting five. If your point guard went down right then and you didn't have a replacement for him, you'd be playing 4-on-5. Yeah, you could score some points. Yeah, you do a couple of things, but you're not going to win the game. Right?
Yeah.
It's 4-on-5,
right.
But now, if you have a point guard, let's say your point guard gets injured and you bring in a backup point guard, right? He's not as good as the original, or is not, as powerful, let's say. But he's out there. You still have a chance, right? Because you still have this person out there who's contributing in some way, whether, it may not be in the way that the other guy was there, but it's still contributing, and you'll have a better chance. So the full spectrum products do tend to have a little bit more therapeutic value. Problem is with those full spectrum products is that they do have that 0.3 THC, and long-term use of those could cause you to test positive on the drug test, right? So if you're using it for 3-4 months and you're not exercising and you're not hydrating well, because these are lipophilic substances. Lipophilic meaning they like fats.
Right.
So they will hang out in your fat. So if you're not out there doing exercise and liberating those things and getting it out of the system, it's going to fool up. 3-4 months later, you can go in for a test and test positive and be like, well, I don't consume marijuana. And depending what the test is for, it can have, it can really negatively affect your lifestyle. So what I tend to do for people, number one, is to find out what they want to do social wise, right? Like, what's your preference? Then we'll also tell any of my patients, listen, if you're here and you're getting treated with CBD and something happens, I'll provide a note for you, for your employer. Hey, listen, this person is under my care. These CBD products are things that they're using for a condition of theirs. If they test positive, THC because of that, but they have, they're getting treated by a physician for it. And never had a problem with anyone with that. Then when we go over to the THC side of things, right? So let's say you're like, hey, listen, it doesn't matter. I just want to get some sleep, right? I want to chill out.
Yeah.
Right? So we go to the THC side of things. Then we'll look at what certain strains will do, right? So we have, two basic strains that everyone concerns themselves with are cannabis sativa and cannabis indica. They exhibit their effects, and we're going to simplify this, so not to get all geeked out, like weed science, geeked out on this, right? Keep it for people, right?
Yeah.
We'll keep it like above board, right? So
right.
Simplification is that you have receptors in your body. They're all over. They're called cannabinoid receptors. They're abbreviated to CB1 and CB2 receptors, and you also have cannabinoid type receptors, and not necessarily cannabinoid receptors, but they're similar cannabinoid-like receptors. But these CB1 and CB2 receptors have a tendency to be activated more or less by different strains. So, simplify it, you'll find that cannabis sativa strains tend to exhibit more of an effect on your CB1 receptors. Doesn't mean that's what they do only, because they also have an effect on your CB2 receptors, right? But they have more of an effect of a CB1 receptors, and then your indica strains tend to have more of an effect on your CB2 receptors and less so on your CB1 receptors. Why is that important? And the real simplification of it is why people say, well, this thing gives you a head high, and this gives you a body high.
Yeah.
So if you want to
always say that.
Right.
You got dispensaries there. They got them split up that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's not really the best science, if I can be honest with you. Yeah. It's not the best science, but for a consumer and for someone who's like, hey, listen, I'm just trying to figure this out so I can get what I need, feel better and keep it moving. Right. It's a good way to simplify it. So, because, they say once you start having all these different choices, and especially for somebody who's just adapting this, who's just walking, it can be overwhelming if you're like, well, actually, let me break it down to you. First, you'll be like, what, man?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So if you just break it down, right, sativas will give you more of a head high. It will give you more of a body high, as they say. And what does that mean? Is that when you consume sativas, for the most part, you will feel more of a psychoactive effect, a mind altering in terms of activation of receptors in your brain. It causes your thoughts, your brain, to start secreting neurotransmitters, which then have an effect on how you think and behave. Lots of serotonin, dopamine, GABA, and glutamate, all of these things, and even noradrenaline. So that's why sometimes people get palpitations and tachycardia, and they're like, oh my God, I just smoked this thing and now my heart is racing, because there are cannabinoid receptors in your myocardium and your cardiac tissue. So, but they really can cause you overactive. Like too much sativas can cause you to be paranoid and have, a bad trip. It's not going to help you go to sleep. Right? So it's like, I can't go to sleep, but I took this, I took some weed to go to sleep, and now I'm afraid that everybody's looking at me, that my wife is talking about me behind my back and all this good stuff. You're definitely not going to go, you're not going to go to sleep. You'll be standing in front of the mirror, and my fat hair, my butt look big, you'll be doing all that stuff. So you don't want to do that. So what most people like to do is take indicas prior to going to sleep, or something, or a hybrid. Hybrid meaning a plant that has a mixture of a profile of sativa and indica, but has more of an indica profile. What does that do? There's less activation of those CB1 receptors in your brain and central nervous system, right? Even though it's still going to hit them, it's not going to hit them as much. Well, what it also does is it causes some analgesia, which is pain relief. It causes some sedation, which is what you want, right? Causes sedation without decreasing respiratory rate or respiratory power, meaning it doesn't, like if you're prone to apnea or things like that, it's not going to do that for you. It's not going to put you in a situation where you stop breathing, if you're a snorer. And then what it also does is vasodilate. Cannabinoids vasodilate, so it allows a decrease in blood pressure, right? It allows the body to actually
I didn't know that one.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So it does all these things, modulates your immune response, your inflammatory response. So if you're not sleeping because of a combination of anxiety and pain or something like that, right? Well, you take this one substance in cannabis, which will decrease your pain, right? So now you don't have that thing that's keeping you up. And then it also decreases your anxiety. So you don't have those two things keeping you up. And by itself, it will induce sleep, which is a great thing. This is why people give, for example, physicians will give Xanax or something for sleep and anxiety, right? Because
my father gets that. My father does that. Yep.
Yeah.
The only thing about Xanax is, and shout out to your father for having his son, tell all his personal business over the air.
That's such a good point. I am not HIPAA compliant right now. I am not being HIPAA compliant. Oh man. That's awesome.
I'm just missing you, but yeah. So if you can get all this relief, and that's why sometimes people look at cannabis as like a wonder drug, or CBD as a wonder drug or a wonder elixir, because it has all these wonderful purported therapeutic benefits, and it's working for people, right?
Yeah.
It's working for people. Low addictive potential, right? Notice that I didn't say no addictive potential. Low addictive potential, meaning that there's not the strong physiological addiction. There could be psychological addiction, right? But it works on the pleasure and reward pathway. So anything that works on that pathway has an addictive potential, whether it's, weed, whether it's, opioids, whether it's sex, whether it's gambling, anything that's like,
chocolate.
I get a chocolate.
Yeah.
Anything that works on that pleasure pathway, food, eating, has addictive potential. So there is a percentage of the population that does, get addicted to weed. Can't stop it. Now, why is that happening? Is it because there's something physiological in them that says, hey, the only time that you feel better is when you consume weed, because it is, there's something missing and it fills the void? Or is it, hey, listen, I am really addicted to the pleasurable feeling that I get when I consume it, and as such, I stop doing other things in my life that are pleasurable because I can get it all from the weed, right? So like, naturally we would be doing these things, exercising, right? Brings us a lot of pleasure, right? You would be doing that. Now, if you found some way to get that feeling of satisfaction or bliss that you get from exercise somewhere else, and you start doing that in its stead, then there's an issue. Social gatherings, we get a lot of pleasure and satisfaction from that, being in a strong group dynamic, family, friends, and this and that, right? Like, that's why you want to speak to people that you like or are close to, because it brings you pleasure and satisfaction. If you substitute that with weed, and you're not hanging out with your people anymore, and you're kind of just like a little recluse getting baked by yourself, that's an issue.
Yeah, right? It's definitely an issue, but it seems to be less prevalent. And I would assume like the more addictive cases would probably be people who are like if they run out, they're going to have a few bad nights of sleep, and then they're going to be like, you know what, I don't want to run out again. Let me just make sure that I'm always.
So what you'll find is, you'll find some people, any time that you have any instance of substance use disorder, or that's the new term. You know how terms get changed. Like, you can't call them, like, it's not an addiction anymore. It's a substance use disorder. Right?
Oh, wow. That's a new one.
As a doctor, right? As the big brain, as the the designated big brain of the show, I got to stay on point with my wording. I can't just show up saying addict. Somebody be like, man, that guy's not a real guy. He doesn't even know that's not even guy's fake, right? No, so substance use disorders, right? So there is concomitant or concurrent psychiatric or psychological disorder. So a lot of people may have depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar, that have something added on to that. A lot of people. So it's kind of like you kind of have to weave through, like I said, a little some of the problems. And I'm only saying this is because, again, as a physician, I don't I don't feel comfortable, not from my training, and I don't think it would be right for me to say, hey, everybody go out there and smoke all the weed you want. It's no problem. It's all, it's all gravy, baby. Have fun, right? Because that would be irresponsible.
Right.
And especially kids, for example, we're looking at young people with developing brains. The brain doesn't stop developing till 22. And looking at the research again, if you expose kids to addictive substances, whatever they are, whether it's alcohol or weed or, other, barbiturates, benzodiazepines, opioids, and you expose it to them in their youth, teenage years, they're more likely to develop an addiction, and that addiction is more likely to be multi-substance. So it won't be just alcohol. To be alcohol and pills, or to be alcohol, pills, and cocaine. It'll never stop at one. And so knowing that, and this is just like, no one's like, this is the research has shown this is why when you prescribe certain things, when, for example, I have pediatric patients and they get prescribed, and you have to have another doctor, who
confirm it,
who corroborates it, that confirms the diagnosis, and then you have to have like a real talk with the parents and say, listen, right, here are the options right here. We don't know full term what can happen, right? The brain is still developing. We don't have, we're just getting to a point where cannabis is becoming something that is available to be long term like this. So we don't know, but here are the potential side effects and negative things. And this is your child's condition now, right? But the child has intractable, Dravet syndrome, which is like a real bad seizure complex. And it's kind of like, listen, give my kid the weed because the seizures are killing them.
Right, exactly. You gotta weigh the
exactly. Yeah, the pros versus the cons.
Right.
Whereas, if it's something like, hey, it's got really bad generalized anxiety.
Right.
So we're looking like, okay, maybe we don't need to use as much THC. We can use some CBD. We can use some BK. We can use some cognitive behavioral therapy and combine all those things, and then get a better plan.
Right.
And that's one other thing I wanted to mention when you mentioned sleep. Another thing that I like to mention to people is sleep hygiene. A lot of us have really bad sleep hygiene. What that revolves around is how do you prepare and how do you maintain an environment for you to be successful at going to sleep, right? It's now something that's bothering you. Like, if you come to me and you're complaining of sleep, that means it's so bad, right? It's so bad that you sought expert help. Like, you've gone past Google. You've gone past your abuela. You've gone past your friends. Like, you've gone past everybody. You're like, listen, man, I'm going to go see somebody that's got some credentials because I need some help. That's how bad it is, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes, simple things can start helping us out. For example, sleep hygiene. What do how long before you get into bed do you prepare to go get to sleep, right? Are you like 10 minutes before it's bedtime, you're like, okay, now I'm going to get into bed and sleep? Or have you prepared, you showered, you get everything that you need? You turned off all the stimuli, including the phone and the TV, the temperature in the room? Is your bed ready? All this good stuff needs to be done to prepare yourself for success. Oftentimes people start making these simple changes. Hey man, shut off all the technology an hour before.
Yeah. And stop eating.
And
stop eating a few hours before.
Stop eating. Stop doing all this stuff. Find something cool and calming. Don't fight with your spouse or whoever. Like all this stuff.
Fight and go to bed. Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like basically chill out. So, sleep hygiene is very important. I think cannabis is very important as part of an overall healthy lifestyle. Shouldn't be used as a magic pill, right? Because a lot of things that we're missing, we can get from our own activity. Exercise is a great treatment for depression and mood. Depression and mood. It's great. Why? Because during exercise, you release a lot of endorphins. What causes a release of those things is your cannabinoids. Your body makes cannabinoids, and they're released in large amounts during exercise. So, exercise is great. Sunlight, eating healthy, all this stuff, it should be incorporated into your healthy lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It is. Yeah. It's not just.
And that's why I like so I don't know if it was Certera who started it, but how we
right, like changing the whole thing.
Incorporating health and wellness into your whole cannabis is part of the wellness regimen.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
What it should be.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually a great segue because we wanted to hear about, the spiritual component of your practice because that seems very unique in the healthcare world and it's so important and ignored most of the time. What does that look like? How does that fit into your practice along with medical cannabis? We've got sleep covered, but are there other things people can be doing,
Yeah. So, in terms of spirituality, personally, I'm Haitian, so I've got the Christian background. I grew up Catholic. I did the whole baptism first.
I did the whole thing, a confirmation, all the thing.
My mom went to.
It's big in Miami. Miami's full of Catholics.
There used to be a school called. I think it was called. It was a sister school to Curly. My mom went to high school there. It was a Catholic high school.
Okay.
Now Curly bought all of it. It was torn down. It was called like Madonna something. It wasn't Shamana Madonna. It was a different name. But yeah, that's interesting. I know the Haitians heavily population.
Heavy to that. So I did all that. Yeah, I remember getting confirmation. I was like, I don't even know what I'm getting confirmed.
I know.
My confirmer here. But is there cake afterwards? I'm
in.
Yeah, I'm bad. I'm in. Whatever you guys say, right? But as life, like most of us, right? You go into the religion that your family kind of has, and then as you get older, if you want to spread out, you do other things. So I actually, I think I went to like Church of Christ, and then kind of searching for my own path. And one of the things that I realized, just talking to people, I got lucky that I grew up in a multicultural part of the country in New York City. So you had all these people from all over the world, Jews and Arabs and, Hindu and, who had their own religion. So it's kind of like, oh, you guys are like, guys are doing something else?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, cool. Right.
And then, right. What's up? What's that about? And then, as I got older, going to college and med school, same kind of thing. So I was always open to the idea that, there isn't just one way. That's been my philosophy, that there isn't just one way to get a message across, right? So even if you're Catholic, what was said in the Haitian and the Creole math may be similar to what was said in Spanish math, but there's going to be a difference in translation. There is, because it's two different languages, right? So, it may be a similar thing, but it has to be said in a way for people of different cultures to understand, whatever that message is. So I always felt like, as long as we had this grounding, this belief that we were connected to something else, it gave us a reason to believe that we were here to do something greater, right? Because it was like, hey, I'm not just here floating around doing whatever and and there's no reason I'm just here accidentally, right? I mean,
that is
you have this state,
part of something,
right?
Yeah,
you're part of something bigger. That you have a contribution that's vital and it's important. Like, your reason you're here for a specific purpose, which you may not even know, but if you just do your best, right, we'll figure it out, and the belief that we're all here for that, it kind of binds us and makes things a little bit more easier to deal with. And then when you go through struggles, it's not random things that are occurring to you. It's like, oh, why is my luck so bad, right? But it's always like, hey, this is something that is here for a purpose in my life, as opposed to to ruin my life. It's kind of like, I'll give you the best example of that. My mother passed away. My mother passed away breast cancer in 2004, right? Which that is what caused me to become a doctor.
Right.
Right. So that terrible situation in my life where you watch your mom, suffer for 2 years and then, die. It is brutal, right? But for me, right? Through all that pain, that's what diverted my life into a life of medicine. And here I am, which is 2019, 15 years later, right? And I'm taking care of people. I'm taking care of people's moms. I'm taking care of people, women with breast cancer. And they come into my office and I can see, like I can literally see the same scenario, like me and my mother going into some other doctor's office and talking. It's like you're realistically having the same conversation, and here I am doing the same thing for somebody else. And I would never have been in that situation had this not happened to me. And same thing with football. Had I not blown out my knee, I really think about it. It ruined my football career, which is something I had set my life and my mind on. Like, here I am, I'm in the NFL. I told all you MFs that I was going to do it.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, here I am. Now I'm going to do it. And then boom, my knee is shredded. But long term, knowing what happens, I played linebacker, and knowing the way I played, I would not have been the person I am now. There's no way. Like from the fact, just knowing that I was already suffering from headaches and the mood swings and things like that from 1 year in the league and all, playing high school and college ball and 1 year in the NFL, that my head started like exploding from that. Wow. Imagine if I had played 5 years, that this would have never happened. I would not have been a physician. I would not have, none of this would have happened. And that's life. And that's like looking back and saying, yeah, man, you are here for a reason. All these things happen for a reason, and look where it's brought you, and look what you're doing now. And I think we all have the ability to look at our lives and look at the way that we're affecting our world and people around us and what kind of impact, whether it's small or large. And, so I think when you're dealing with healing, it's not just the physical healing, but there's also the mental, the emotional healing, and the spiritual healing that's got to be involved in it. It's a big part of it.
Man, and wow. I think what you're doing is so unique because if nothing else, and I know that it's much more involved in this, but I can just picture the people that walk through. It's Grassroots Well, right? That's the name of the clinic.
Yeah.
These people that are walking through those. Is that the name of the place that you were?
Grassroots Wellness, yeah.
Yeah, Grassroots Wellness. Yeah, and
the website is grassrootswell.com.
What is the other one?
No,
the website is grassrootswell.com.
Oh, grassrootswell.com. Okay, no wonder. So it's Grassroots Wellness. So these people are coming in through this place, and a lot of them have physical ailments, but a lot of them have some trauma. And the fact that you can, incorporate into your practice this idea that life is happening for them and not to them. And this ability to have perspective on everything, like, yeah, I lost my leg, but what has happened since? Like I look at my life, and I have the same issues. Man, what if I would have gone to Missouri? What if I would have looked into Naval Academy? I didn't want to go there because it was the service requirement. What if I had done all these places? Would I still be playing football? And then all I have to think about is like my wife, and I wouldn't have had my kids. Right. That right there, I'm just like, I'm out.
Right. It's true.
That's true. It's an incredible thing when you think about that, right? It's like, look, I'm gonna go all out. I'm gonna share too much information too. It's your dad's business. Dad's business is out there. Everybody else
do it. I love it.
Yeah. But I've been divorced, and it's tough being divorced, right? You harp on like, man, failed relationship. I had beautiful kids out of that, like, and I think about it, right? Like if somebody was like, hey dude, here, you get a chance to do it over, right? You won't get married, you won't go through the misery of the divorce thing, right? But you don't get your sons. Like, you gotta take that away. Yeah. I feel like, nah, like, come to think about it, that is a small cost of entry.
Right.
Yeah. What those guys mean to me, like, oh, that's it. True. That's a cover charge to get into the club.
So true.
That's
right.
Nothing.
So
yeah.
Right. And it's wonderful to think of life that way, because you become more of you become less of a victim, and you become more of a champion.
Yes.
Right? I was speaking to a patient this morning who has a substance use disorder, right? I was going to say addiction problem, but we only use
got the new vocabulary words
on the Fast podcast. We got it down. We do not mess around here, right? And she was feeling like bad. She got on Percocets. Realistically, got on Percocets, and it just went downhill after that.
Yeah.
I think she popped a couple of Percocets, she told me, like with some friends partying, and then boom. Like within 3 days, she was hooked. Like, can you imagine
so
that?
Bad.
Right?
Because it's so scary, so scary.
Right? And I was like, and she had veins that she was that on her hand that she'd been using. You could see her marks from where she'd been injecting herself.
Wow.
And she was really embarrassed. She's like, I had a long sleeve. She's trying to cover her hand. And I was explaining to her, like, hey, listen, man, it's okay to feel sad about, like, what's happened, right? But I was like, listen, if you were writing a movie, right, you're starring in the movie, what would you want the lead character to do, right? Because that's what your life is. If this is you're the lead character of this movie. Like, you literally can go wherever you want with this right now. And so this is your chance to be the star. And I was like, in the star of your movie, would you want the star of your movie to just like wither away and wallow in self-pity? Or would you want your star to do something heroic where you'll be cheering? You'll be like, wow, look at that comeback. Look at that one. It's like, well, this is your chance right here. This is your chance to like look at life and say, there's something here for me to do for myself. And let me go get it. Like, let's go do it. Right?
Yeah, give the main character a mission. Let her go.
Yeah, right?
That's great. I love that because it's empowering. It lets people understand that, yes, they do have control. You have so much control. Like, you may not have control over what happens, but you have control over how you react to it, how you perceive it.
Of course.
So, I mean, Maura and I both said, it's unique, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. We do great stuff. We have like sound healings. We do meditations, and we try to fuse CBD in there. And if you got your license, the law allows you to smoke in private businesses and residences. So space people can like medicate. Yeah, man.
Yeah, so, we have a doctor here in Brandon who does yoga wana. You should just totally steal that name and do some yoga wana down there.
Oh, it's mine right now. We get on the trademark. Hold on.
Yeah, get that website.
Buy that
URL.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I actually, just to make it real creepy, I thought of that name 10 years ago.
Wow, that's crazy.
No, I'm just making that up.
I was going to say.
I'm the easiest person to like tell.
Yeah, me too. Really?
That's hilarious. But I think, what's good about it? I think this is where healthcare is going. I think there's more and more physicians who are getting into the integrative medicine kind of model and do. I think, we've done so much reactive medicine, whereas somebody comes in and now I'm treating their diabetes and their heart disease after they've already been in the hospital twice or something because of that, as opposed to way before it gets to that point, start saying, listen, this is how you take care of yourself, right? And taking care of people in a way that's humane, so it doesn't involve pushing a lot of things on you or sticking needles in you or cutting you open or blasting you with radiation, and treating people, treating people the way I would want my mother treated. And that's going to sound real corny, but that's the absolute truth.
Dr. Bottaro, Nicholas Bottaro, I'm sure you know him. He's, similar situation, pancreatic cancer, his mom, and that informed his whole path. It kind of, same thing with you. Like, it's amazing because I'm walking into your office. I'm a patient. I'm going to see how invested you are because of that caring that you have, that you're personally invested. And I agree with you. I think that move from sick care and moving towards wellness and educating people, it has to be that way in the future.
Yeah, it has to.
We need to be able to take care of ourselves, not just. I think it's very scary to only be able to depend on other people to take care of you. You need to be able to take care of yourself. You need to be able to know how to live a healthy lifestyle, and go to a place where someone like you can help tweak things and get things better, instead of, hey,
and educate them so that they're,
what are you gonna give me?
Yeah, exactly. And educate them so that they're capable of doing that,
Yeah.
What's great about what you just said, because the education is so important for me.
Absolutely.
We just don't know what's going on. I mean, there's so much stuff to know, but we've got so much stuff going on in our lives. And then now you add health to it. And it's like, what? I need to learn how this works and that works and this and that. And then as it gets worse, as you get more ill, it becomes harder because the sick treatment becomes more convoluted. So then you got 3 medications, 4 medications, and you have the interaction. And then you're like, man, I feel crappy. I don't know if I feel crappy because I'm getting sicker, or if it's all this stuff that I'm taking, or if it's a combination of it. Like, I don't know what's going on. And
too much background noise. You can't isolate variables. You can't know what's doing what.
No. Yeah. No, so I think so I spend a lot of time with people on the education part, because, if you just, what's the old Christian proverb? Like, you teach a man to fish. What is it? Like, you
give a man a fish, feed him for a day.
Eat for a day, teach a man to fish and feed him for life, right?
Yeah.
So true. That's kind of like how you got to do it in medicine. If you're going to do the right thing by people, go home at the end of the night, rest my head easy, say, listen, I'm doing what I love. I take care of people. Yeah. I'm not churning through patients like other people are, but that's cool. I don't need to do that. Like that's not going to, at the end of the day, counting my dollars is not going to make me feel any better or worse. All right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm still going to be all right. I'm still a physician. I'll still be all right, no matter what. I've got a professional degree, and I'll always be okay. But then when I look back, my kids get to come to work with me. My kids, my 13-year-old knows a great deal about marijuana.
Yeah.
Like, he'll be straightening people out. He's like, nah. So let me explain to you how it goes.
Right.
I love
it.
I love that, because that's that education piece again. Like, it's like you're raising educated children who are now where there were 2 or 1 of you. Now you got 3, because now you got your 2 boys. There's 2 of them.
Yep.
That's hilarious. Our 2 boys were actually, because we had gone to the Sortera grand opening, and they gave us a few hats that say Cannabis Community, and they were like, Cannabis Community, and they're like at the neighbor's house with their hats on,
rocking their thing. I was like, take off your hats. They're like, why? I was like,
you know what?
Never mind.
It's fine.
Yeah, never mind.
You know what? Yeah, never mind it. Like, because what's funny is that there's a lot of us professionals, working people, moms, dads, families who are into cannabis or believers, and haven't had the opportunity to kind of like, all right, listen, I don't find anything wrong with this, but it was hard for us to voice our opinions and voice us because of like the perceived repercussions of the stigma. And now as more people are seeing, like, listen, man, this is not the realm of stoners and junkies and blah, blah, blah. They're moms, dads, professionals. Like, you'd be surprised at the people who are involved. Like, you would be, you go to some of these things and there's like judges and politicians and, lawyers. I've had events that it's like musicians, athletes, judges, politicians, lawyers, and they're all in there like, yeah, we've been smoking for a long time. We just
oh yeah, I got my card.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So now, there's an opportunity with people like you and what I'm doing, and other people who are kind of like bringing this more and more into the mainstream. It's like functional families, everyday people who are doing the right thing. See nothing wrong with cannabis, and it's a great thing. So I'm happy to have you guys on board too.
And
we feel the same.
We appreciate you so much, and we appreciate. I wanted to give you an opportunity because we talked a little bit about we have a ton of friends in Miami, and Grassroots Wellness it's in Wynwood, right? You're in Wynwood?
Yeah, we were in Wynwood, and we have a new spot being built in Little Haiti. I don't know where that stuff is supposed to be ready since January. So I'll have a temporary location made at the Citadel in Little Haiti while they're great build out our new spot.
Okay, sounds good.
So, and where can we find you online so everybody can? I want people to see how sharp you look in your bow ties and your.
Flattery will get you everywhere, my friend. So we have two websites. Grassrootswell.com is the site for the Wellness Center. That's GRASSROOTSWELL.com is the site for the Wellness Center. And then for our CBD products, it's grassrootsherbals.com, GRASSROOTSHERBALS.com. Online, it's Dr. Damas Wellness. You can find us. It's the same thing on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. It's Dr. Damas Wellness. And me, I'm just Dr. Damas MD. You can find me. I'm not that important. And then we're gonna hook up your audience, right?
Yeah. Please let them know. Let them know.
Oh man, we're gonna bless all the listeners of the Fat Fuel podcast, right, for being such wonderful people and for writing down all the pertinent details about Dad's drug use. And
you're gonna be walking up to my dad.
Yeah, I heard Dad like, dude, man. I heard,
what do you think about anxiolytics? I heard you got a little issue.
You got a little something going on here. All right, so if you, anybody that calls in, the telephone number for us to call, make an appointment is 1-833-362-3262. So it's toll free 833-362-3262. They can call in and mention that they heard on the Fat Fuel podcast that they get $50 off of their medical marijuana consultation and licensing. So hooks them up. That's a fat $50 off. And of course, they get hooked up by the dispensary by our sponsor here, Sotero, put us together. We'll hook them up to something else. They'll find out in the office, right? Because I think that's like $75 off of
their first purchase.
Yep. So they're gonna get hooked up with that, right? And then for any CBD products, like we mentioned before, anybody who wants to go to grassrootsherbals.com, use the code FATFUEL, and you get 15% off. So you're getting hooked up.
Yep.
Hooked up. I'm putting my money where my mouth is.
Oh, I love it. It's awesome. Well, totally. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And we're going to be putting all of this information in the show notes to make it easy for everyone to find. So we'll put all the websites, the codes, the phone number, all of it in the show notes to make it easier.
Yo, you guys are the best. So when am I going to see you guys?
Oh man,
we gotta go.
I got your number now, so I feel
bad we go to Miami every so often. So we'll definitely let you know when we're on the way down.
Be there at the end of May or June. We'll be there sometime in June. So I'll make sure to reach out to you before. I would love to hang out.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Really appreciate it. We cannot wait to put this and get everybody to listen to.
You.
It's a bunch of good stuff.
Yeah, this is fun. This is by far one of the most fun I've done.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Well, we had fun too.
Summer, summer.